Welcome to the BamaInsider.com podcast, coming to you from the Big Easy in New Orleans as Alabama prepares to take on #1 ranked Clemson. I'm here alongside Tony Sakalis and Tyler Waldrop. Did I say it right, Tyler? Okay, yeah. All right, good. He's our intern floating around helping out on the team coverage, and we're bringing it to you every single day, and I hope you've enjoyed the coverage by our staff. And, of course, Andrew Bone is also on the team, and he is in Orlando covering the Under Armour All-American game. The staff eagerly awaiting Media Day, which will be on Saturday, where we get to talk to every single player. Who are you guys looking forward to talking to most tomorrow?
Oh man, I don't know. It's always nice to talk to the freshmen that we don't get to talk to. So that's nice. I think I'll end up talking to Mac Wilson. I think he's going to have a big role in this game as well.
Do you think there's any chance that we'll talk to Tua?
I mean, there's probably a big chance we'll talk to Tua, so get ready.
Yeah, expect 10 or more threads on Tua.
Wall-to-wall Tua coverage.
Yeah, wall-to-wall Tua coverage is right. No, so we'll have, I mean, these past couple days, we've talked to the Alabama offense. We've talked to the Alabama defense. We've heard from the same from Clemson. And tomorrow we will get to talk to all the Alabama players and coaches. And how it's set up on Saturday, it's at the Superdome, and the media is able to talk to literally everybody. So we'll be bringing, tons of video content, tons of, reports from the Superdome as we move closer to the Sugar Bowl. Tony, I'll start with you. On Thursday, we talked to Brian Dable for the first time since we heard him all the way back in April. What were your impressions, about what he said, managing the running backs? Did he seem a little bit guarded? I mean, I asked him, and he said there's only one ball. But what were your impressions from him talking about the running backs?
Alabama needs to make a shirt that says "There's only one ball." I mean, that's the saying that goes around here. It didn't really say much other than they're gonna try to. There's only one ball, and they try to get the ball in the playmaker's hands. I know the question behind Brian Dable is that a lot of people want to see them go with the hot hand. A lot of people, if somebody's ripping off 10, 20-yard runs, they want to see that person stay in the game. And it'll be interesting to see what Alabama does, because a lot of what, managing those reps and the limited carries has been to keep the running backs fresh. Well, we're at a point in the season where it doesn't really matter if you're fresh if you're not going to win. So, I mean, I think, it'd be interesting to see if somebody's ripping off if Damian gets a bunch of big carries, is he going to get the workload for the rest of the game? It'd be interesting.
In your opinion, would Alabama be more effective or have a more effective offense if Damian did have 15 to 20 carries per game?
I don't know. I mean, we really haven't got to see it, so it's hard to judge that. I think last year we saw Bo Scarborough get hot and have big games where he had a lot of the carries. It is worth pointing out though that Alabama has a lot more running backs this season, so maybe they just have that where they didn't have that as much last season. And then with if you go back 2 years, you got it back like Derrick Henry. I mean, he was the obvious guy, and he got the ball a lot, and obviously made a Heisman season out of it. But
let's see what the internet has to say on this. Tyler, who is the best running back on Alabama's football team?
That's not a question. It's Damian Harris. And did you ask Tony if Alabama would be better off giving the ball to Damian 15 times a game? That's what you asked, right?
Yes.
Yes, Alabama would be way better giving the ball to Damian Harris 15 times a game.
Agree, yeah.
I mean, for a season-long perspective, yes, Alabama's kept Damian Harris fresh, and yes, it's allowed him to be explosive. But this is the playoff. Give him the ball 15 times a game and see what he does.
We're coming to you from the Big Easy here at the Marriott Convention Center. It's been a great trip so far. There's we've cranked out a lot of media coverage. So remember, we do have a front page. Go to BamaInsider.com. Check out all our coverage. These guys knocking it out of the park coverage-wise. Andrew Bone also on staff, bringing you coverage on the 30th from Orlando. We'll be covering a few Alabama commitments. So a lot of stuff to keep track of, and we're doing our best to bring it to you. You guys deserve it. Let me ask you this. This is regarding Jalen Hurts. So do you guys have 100% confidence that he's leading this team the way he should? I mean, Tony, is he 24-2 as a starter? Is that correct?
That sounds right.
I think we have. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty sure that those numbers are accurate. But Is he the right guy, Tony? Come on, end it.
He is the guy. It doesn't even matter. Yeah, of course he's the right guy. He's the guy that Alabama has. He's the starter, and he's going to be the starter. You know, all these, you know, there's no speculation about it. He's going to be the starter. He's Alabama's starter for the rest of the season, and most likely will be their starter moving forward next season.
What do you think? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what do you think people have the biggest problem with Jalen? There's a lot of people. If you're just on the message boards, it seems like there's a lot of people that are just completely negative about him. But in the bigger aspect of things, there's a lot of people who really like his game and respect what he does for Alabama. But what do people dislike most about his playing style, would you say?
Oh, the passing game. I think they're used to a certain style of quarterback, and Jalen hasn't been that style of quarterback that they're used to. That's not to say that Alabama cannot win with a style of quarterback like Jalen. You know, lately, you could point to third downs. I think that's caused a lot of frustration. Alabama's really struggled on third downs. That happens with both styles of quarterbacks. Is it something that Jalen Hurts needs to work on? Of course. I think he'd probably be the first one to tell you that he's got to get better on third downs. But that's also a team thing. You know, it's also Alabama's got to get better on second downs, and they got to get better on first downs. It can't just always be a 3rd and 7. Is Jalen Hurts perfect? Absolutely not. He has a lot of flaws. He has, there is improvements that need to be made, but he's a pretty good quarterback as well. He's led them to two playoffs. If he wins on Monday, he'll have led them to 2 national championship games. So it's really hard to argue with what the young man's done because he's pretty solid. I mean, and when it comes down to clutch moments, he's even better. So he's definitely the guy, like I said earlier, and Alabama better off rallying behind him if you're a fan base than trying to go against him because he's definitely Alabama's guy.
Tyler, what would happen if come Monday night, Clemson defeats Alabama and Jalen Hurts has lost 2 games in a row to end the season? What would it mean for Jalen Hurts?
He would have 3 losses. I mean,
would it mean that? I guess would it mean that he's not the guy going into next season? I mean, does he have to win this game?
I think if he wants to keep maybe like 90%, 100% job security, he probably has to win this game. But I think he could afford to lose this game and still be the starter. I don't think he loses the job. I think it opens the door for Tua if he loses. But I don't know that it, says the coaching staff, oh, we're suddenly going to go away from Jalen completely. He doesn't have a chance.
I have great respect for Jalen. I really admire the way he carries himself. However, I have to say this. I think if Alabama loses to Clemson on Monday, I think we go into the new year, and I think it's quarterback battle, and I think rightfully so, and I think you let those guys duel it out in April. If Jalen wins this game and leads him to a national title, and then win or lose a national title, he's still the guy in 2018. But I think it's pivotal that Jalen wins this game in order to continue to be the starting quarterback at Alabama.
I don't know if I agree with that because, I mean, that's putting the whole Alabama's entire success on Jalen. I mean, what if Jalen goes out and throws 300 yards and they lose?
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying, we got to look at his numbers because you're right. I mean, you bring up a good point. What if he's 21 for 25 and he has 270 yards and they still lose, right? I mean, then why would you take it away? So I think let's evaluate his play, just like I'm sure the coaches will do here at Alabama, and then you kind of take it from there. So let's look at his numbers, I guess, and then that would probably determine where we go from here.
And I think that Nick Saban's made it clear that he's going to play the best quarterback. So if Jalen Hurts was to win and they felt like that Tua was the better quarterback next year, I'm not sure that Nick Saban wouldn't give Tua a chance at the job next year. I would say though, if Jalen does win a national title and he only has 2 career losses, it would be kind of hard to take that player, to take the starting job away from that player. I mean, obviously it's working at that point.
All right, let's slow things down a little bit. I mean, we're starting to get kind of ramped up. I wanted to. I mean, we're in New Orleans, and there's no doubt about it. The food here is outstanding. Yesterday, took these 2 young fellas to Drogo's right here at the Hilton, and we had charboiled oysters, and we had regular oysters. Tyler didn't have the regular oysters. I think he's going to work his way up to there. But how are the charbroiled oysters?
They were fantastic.
Right?
They lived up to the hype, and I went in fully expecting to hate them.
They're solid though. I mean, I really enjoyed them. And then last night, Tony and I caught some. We caught some blues here in New Orleans. Talk about the band, and then tell them where you took me after.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, we were stumbling.
Where were we stumbling?
Past the French Quarter on. I forget where we were actually, but we kind of ran into this blues band, and we were digging it. And that's I don't know. You kind of had to be there, but it was really nice. We had probably 3 or 4 beers there. Kind of sat back and enjoyed the night. It was a pretty lax night by New Orleans standards. But the real story of this is Kyle has never been to Café du Monde, and he's also been to New Orleans before. So
yeah, it was. I mean, and absolutely delivered. I mean, we were walking past the restaurant. There was a little bit of a line. Probably one of the shorter lines that restaurant experiences. But we got in, we sat down, and these light, fluffy, sugar powdered
beignets is what they're called.
Beignets came out, and they were incredible. We had some coffee, and my goodness. So
full story. I had to convince Kyle that this was worth the.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I was super skeptical about them, but I mean, we're trying to make our way back home, and but I'm glad we stopped there because you just have to do it if you're here in New Orleans, and overall, this has been a great experience. So we got a couple more days left, and I'm excited to see what else we can knock out of here because the food. When I come to New Orleans, I think you think of food. You think of a good time, and obviously football surrounding that. So, I wanted to add that in. So we'll continue to log our food stories, and we'll make sure and take some more advice from the message board because there's a lot of people on the website who have provided us with places to go. So I try to keep that in mind and try to go for more of those local spots when we're in New Orleans. You're listening to the BamaInsider.com podcast. My name is Kyle Henderson. We're coming to you from the Big Easy. As mentioned, I'm here with Tony Sakalas and Tyler Waldrip as we push forward to the Sugar Bowl. Alabama taking on number 1 Clemson. This is round 3 between the two teams, the two perennial powers. We talked to the Alabama defense today, and we spoke with defensive coordinator Jeremy Pruitt. Tyler, we'll start with you. What was your general thoughts with hearing from Pruitt? I mean, we don't get to talk to a lot of these assistant coaches, but what was his message?
He's here to talk about Clemson and not Tennessee,
Yeah.
and that's probably not surprising. That's what people wanted to talk about was Tennessee, and I think that's kind of the story. That was kind of the story. Is Pruitt distracted, especially after Saban unofficially or officially sends Kiffin packing last season, replaces him kind of midstream. I think a lot of people were worried the same thing might happen if Alabama were to first get past Clemson. I think people were worried that would happen. So people wanted to ask Pruitt how he's managing both jobs, and Pruitt shut that talk down pretty quick. He's only here to work with Alabama, only here to talk about Clemson.
I spoke with Rashawn Evans and Minka Fitzpatrick, and they had so much positive praise to give to Pruitt. They said they were really excited for him, and they understood that when you become a head coach, that your future goals are to become, or when you're an assistant coach, your aspirations are to become a head coach. So they were really, really praising him, and I thought that was the right thing to do, and obviously they meant it. Tony, I wanted to ask you, how big of a loss is Jeremy Pruitt to Alabama?
Oh, it's gonna be a big loss. I think they're very fortunate to have him for this playoff run because I think he understands the defense in a way that maybe nobody else besides Nick Saban on staff understands it. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a big loss, but at the same time, it's one that Alabama can manage. Alabama's been managing these kind of losses year in and year out. I mean, Kirby Smart was a big loss, and they did just fine in hiring Jeremy Pruitt. They've got is it Pete Golding from UTSA? He sounds like an interesting hire. He sounds like a young up and coming guy, and I'm sure he came really highly recommended as well. So you really got to trust the Alabama coaching staff on that hire. It looks promising, and then you don't know what they're gonna do. They can hire another spot now too with that extra assistant. Be interesting to see what they do with that. Maybe go offensive and maybe split some duties between Tosh Lapoy and Golding. There's a lot of options they could do. They could even hire another defensive coach too. So.
Can you fill our listeners in? Does Alabama have a replacement for Pruitt yet? Have they officially named it? Because I know, but we get this question a lot. So explain what, or at least what we know in terms of the defensive coordinator.
That's something that Nick Saban said he was going to do after the season. He said it's too much of a distraction to try to, bring in new candidates and hire people while still trying to coach the team in the playoffs. So I expect Alabama to make that decision after the season. But it very well could be somebody on staff.
Let me ask you this, and maybe it's not a tough question, but is Tosh Lupoi ready to be solely titled as Alabama's defensive coordinator?
I don't know. Signs would point to yes. I mean, he's done well with what he's done. If he's not, though, I mean, you could probably see a co-role with him and Golden, and then use that extra coaching spot on the other side of the ball. I see that as probably the most probable outcome. But then you could just give the DC title to Lupoi. I know Golding's more of a defensive backs coach, which Alabama seems to have that covered with Derek Ainsley, and Nick Saban also helps out there. So it would be really interesting to see what they can do. And a lot of these coaches can coach at multiple positions. Just because you have experience at one doesn't mean that if you're going to be a defensive coordinator, you have to know everything. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think Tosh Lupoi's name is going to be involved some way or another.
Tyler, you wrote an article with Minkah Fitzpatrick and him going against Hunter Renfrow from Clemson. How do you see that matchup? Obviously, Minkah being one of the top players in the entire nation. Just kind of fill us in on the story and how you see that matchup going down.
Well, I think the big thing to think about is this will be the third time Minkah Fitzpatrick and Hunter Renfrow have seen each other in a game. Although last year they didn't. Minkah wasn't the primary guy assigned to cover Hunter. I'm sure Minkah made his share of plays. In fact, I know he made his share of plays against Hunter Renfrow. But Renfrow, 3 of his 4 touchdowns against Alabama have come either against Minkah as the primary guy, or he caught the ball in space and just made Minkah look foolish. And that's not something that there's a lot of players that can say they've made Minkah Fitzpatrick look foolish in any of the 3 years he's been at Alabama. So I think that this will kind of be a lot of people are saying that's the matchup to watch, and I agree. I think if Minkah can shut down Hunter Renfrow and force Clemson to go after other people, that's probably Alabama's best chance to kind of shut down Clemson.
You're listening to the BamaInsider.com podcast. We're coming to you from New Orleans. My name is Kyle Henderson, along with Tony Sakalas and Tyler Waldrop. You can catch all our coverage on BamaInsider.com. A couple days ago, we had a 4-part series with Tiger Illustrated, which ran on the front page of Bama Insider. Tony wrote his keys to the game. Tony, as we look at this game, and we'll start with the offensive side, what are some key factors that Alabama has to do in order to win this football game Monday night?
I think keys overall, I guess on the offensive side, but then also on the defensive side, is that third down. Alabama has been abysmal on third downs on really both sides of the ball. That's something that cost them in their last matchup against Clemson, and it's something that's going to be really important in this game as well. And I think, those early third downs are going to be really important in setting the tone. Alabama's heading into this matchup knowing that it needs to be good on third down. You go 0 for 3. Let's say you start the game with 2 3-and-outs. That's going to weigh heavily on the offense. And they're going to need, that first third down, I think, is going to be really important. And I think once you complete that, you move forward, you take another step. And I think that momentum-wise for Jalen Hurts, for the offense in general, that's going to be a really important to watch early.
What about on the other side of the football?
Same thing too. But also really shutting down the run. I think if you're able to make Kelly Bryant a one-dimensional quarterback and really just force him to pass, he's not the passer Deshaun Watson is. And I know he's also he can make throws. I'm not trying to down him as a quarterback, but he's not Deshaun Watson. Mm-hmm. And so if you're able to just try to make him into a passer, I don't think he's going to beat you the same way that Deshaun Watson is. So I think it's really important if Alabama is able to assert their dominance on the ground the way that they have in the past, I think they could have a lot of success against this Clemson offense.
What about you, Tyler? Tony talks a lot about third downs and the importance, which obviously will play a huge role Monday night. What do you think? Give me a couple keys on both sides of the football, which will, help Alabama be successful against a very good Clemson team.
Well, for Alabama's offense, Tony kind of alluded to it earlier talking about the quarterbacks. Alabama's problem with third downs on offense isn't because of, they're 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10. Sometimes they're 3rd and 12. They're losing yards on the first 2 downs. And Alabama Jalen Hurts isn't a good enough passer at this point in his career to have 3rd and 10 every single time. It's not a huge shock that Alabama can't convert a third down when first and second down are going so just abysmal. So if Alabama can kind of stay on pace, pick up a couple yards, keep it 3rd and even 5, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, I think Alabama's good on that side of the ball. And I already said, give it to Damian Harris. If another back gets hot, give it to them too. Run the ball. If Alabama was really trying to preserve their backs this year, it seems kind of likely, then this is the time to stop. This is the time to let them run. As far as defensively, in talking with Minka today, he actually was asked if Hunter Renfrow's the guy they have to shut down on third down. And he said yes, but immediately followed that up with, you have to watch Clemson's quarterback. You have to make sure he's not running. Just because you're covering all the receivers doesn't mean he's not going to run and pick up the third down. So I think Alabama keying him, like Tony said, and preventing him from picking up plays with his feet, force him to pass, force him to prove that, he's the heir apparent to Deshaun Watson, that he's, truly replaced him as the guy. Make him beat you with his arm the way Alabama largely made Watson beat him the last season.
Tony, can you give us a injury report for Alabama going into this football game?
Yeah, it's on defenses where they're gonna be hit, of course. It's for the second straight game against Clemson. Interestingly enough, they'll be without their starting strong safety and without a middle linebacker. Last year they also had Deion Hamilton hurt. He has a broken kneecap this year. He's done for the season. And then Hootie Jones is gone as well. So Alabama will also be without Dylan Moses. It's looking like Brian Ray is going to be back for the game, so that adds another pass rushing threat. Either maybe that defensive end position, or I guess you could maybe put him at a jack linebacker-ish role, but in some form or way, another pass rusher. In the middle, they're really going to need Mac Wilson to step up. He should be fine. He had a foot injury. Came back for the Auburn game. I think he'll be, interestingly enough, Jeremy Pruitt said that all 3 of the linebackers that returned against Auburn were at 100%. I think that's kind of one of the things that he has to say. I don't necessarily believe him there. I don't think that Terrell Lewis and Christian Miller and Mac Wilson, they didn't look 100% against Auburn, but they'll be back, and I think they will be 100% against Clemson. So those would be big. That's pretty much it. Moses, Jones, and
Hamilton.
Hamilton, yes, thank you. Are the 3 that are the big losses right here.
Well, I think that's a good starting point for the podcast. I wanted to maybe run one through the week, and then maybe we'll do a post-game podcast following the game, or maybe we'll spin one out on Sunday, kind of just depending on timing. But that's kind of where we stand right now. This is a good starting point, and we're going to have continuing coverage on BamaInsider.com. So be sure and check out the front page. You can also subscribe to our podcast by just simply going on to iTunes or Google Play and just searching for the BamaInsider.com podcast. From New Orleans, Louisiana, this is the BamaInsider.com podcast. I'm Kyle Henderson, Tony Sakalas, Tyler Waldrop. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.